kuo nĩ atĩ matihũraga makobi marĩa kũhũra hĩ cierĩ, ambunge mahũrithagia magũrũ thĩ, na ũcio nĩguo mũtaratara wa mbunge wa kuonania atĩ kĩndũ kĩrĩa hihi wagweta ambunge nĩ makenio nĩkĩo. Na kuma hau kana gũkũ ciikaro-inĩ ici cia mbunge kũrĩ na mũtongoria wa kĩama kĩa ODM Raila Odinga, nĩ mũgeni wa speaker onake gũkũ ciikaro-inĩ cia mbunge, tondũ ririkana Raila Odinga ti mũmbunge, rĩu nake egũkorwo aikarĩte handũ hetagwo speaker gallery, kũrĩa nĩ ciikaro-inĩ iria ageni a speaker makoragwo metĩkĩrĩtio gũikara, na atongoria angĩ othe o mũtongoria ũngĩenda gũkorwo kuo na mũcirithania mũnene onake egũkorwo arĩ o gĩikaro-inĩ kĩu kana egũkorwo arĩ ciikaro-inĩ icio cia ageni a speaker. Ona atongoria acio angĩ hihi ta mũtongoria wa kĩama kĩa Wiper, atongoria a kĩama kĩa ANC, Ford Kenya, KANU, Ford Kenya na KANU nĩ maseneta, ũguo aya no makorwo gũkũ thĩinĩ kũrĩ ciikaro cia ũmbunge kana ciikaro cia mbunge, no ta rĩu mũtongoria wa kĩama kĩa ANC Musalia Mudavadi angĩkorwo nĩ egũka no aikarire gĩikaro-inĩ kana kũrĩa ciikaro-inĩ cia speaker. Na kwa ihinda rĩrĩ gũkinyĩria rĩu president ndarĩ araingĩra gũkũ cia mbunge kwarĩria ambunge, no arĩ wabici-inĩ cia nĩkuo aramũkĩrwo akĩheagwo akĩamũkagĩra tũmaĩ, nĩgetha kuma hau acoke athiĩ ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe aheane ndũmĩrĩri kũrĩ bũrũri. Ndũmĩrĩri ĩno ĩrĩ ya kanana kuma rĩrĩa president Uhuru Kenyatta atuĩkire president. Gũtirĩ tũraũmenya na maambani kana ĩno nĩyo ĩgũkorwo ĩ ndũmĩrĩri ya mũico ya president, no ũhoro nĩ atĩ gũtigarĩte mĩeri 6 mbere ya gĩthurano kĩa mwaka ũkĩte gĩtabanio, na nĩ tũrĩ na uma atĩ president ndagakorwo akĩhũranĩra gĩturwa. Ũguo nĩ kuga atĩ hihi ĩno nĩyo ndũmĩrĩri yake ya mũthia, kana hihi nĩ akaheana ĩngĩ mwaka ũkĩte, ũndũ ũrĩa ũgakorwo ũtakinyĩte mwaka mũgima. Ndũmĩrĩri ĩno kũheana kana president kũheana ndũmĩrĩri ĩno kũrĩ bũrũri, ti wendi wake nĩ ũrĩa athĩtwo nĩ gatiba, atĩ o rita rĩmwe harĩ mwaka no nginya president amenyithie bũrũri ũrĩa bũrũri ũregariũra, maũndũ marĩa mekuo bũrũri-inĩ, maũndũ marĩa thirikari yake ĩreka, maũndũ marĩa thirikari ĩtanyĩte gwĩka, gũthiĩ na mbere kũhe bũrũri mwerekera. Na ũyũ nĩ ũndũ ekaga rita rĩmwe harĩ mwaka athĩtwo nĩ gatiba kwarĩria mũthuri wa bũrũri akĩhĩtũkĩra mbunge, nĩ tondũ ciikaro-inĩ cia mbunge kana gũkũ ciikaro-inĩ cia mbunge ĩrĩ ya senate na ya kĩbũrũri, ambunge makoragwo marĩ arũgamĩrĩri a mũingĩ kũrĩa matũũra-inĩ, na rĩu ndũmĩrĩri ĩheanĩtwo gũkũ mbunge-inĩ ĩrakinyĩra mũingĩ ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe kũhetũkĩra ceceni ya Inooro TV na kũhetũkĩra arũgamĩrĩri a mũingĩ gũkũ mbunge-inĩ gĩkĩro-inĩ gĩa kĩbũrũri arĩa nĩ ambunge na maseneta. Ririkana ambunge arĩa metĩkĩrĩtio gũkũ nĩ 118 na nĩtũgũkũhutĩria atĩ president no gũkorwo akĩhutia maũndũ matiganĩte, maũndũ megiĩ ũgitĩri wa bũrũri, ũthii wa na mbere, ũhoro wĩgiĩ tarĩu matũũra-inĩ. Kuma na mũmbunge wa gĩcigo kĩa ũmbunge gĩa kũrĩa Marakwet auma haha ekwenda kwaria na ithuĩ, na mũmbunge ũcio nĩ arauga kĩrĩa we angĩenda kũigua mũno mũno kuma kwĩ president nĩ ũhoro wĩgiĩ ũgitĩri, ti ũrangĩri ta ũgitĩri, ũhoro wĩgiĩ wayo wa matũũra-inĩ, akiuga ũhoro wĩgiĩ ũhagũku wa ũgitĩri gĩtarũ-inĩ kĩa Rift Valley, na maya nĩ maũndũ mamwe ma marĩa president atanyĩtwo gũkorwo akĩmahutia, na ũhoro wĩgiĩ ũrĩmi, ũhoro wĩgiĩ kwĩhũnia. Bũrũri-inĩ ihinda rĩrĩ nĩ tuonete onokorwo ihinda rĩrĩ kũrĩ na mbura ĩrĩa ĩraura, nĩ tuonete matũũra maingĩ mũno ma bũrũri marĩ na ng'aragu. Kaunti 29 bũrũri-inĩ irĩ na ng'aragu, andũ milioni 2.9. Acio nĩ andũ ta milioni 3 magũmĩirwo nĩ ng'aragu bũrũri-inĩ, na ũguo president nĩ egũtanywo kana ndũmĩrĩri na no ĩtanyĩtwo gũkorwo ĩkĩhutia maũndũ macio megiĩ ng'aragu na ũrĩa thirikari ĩreka gũteithia Akenya arĩa magũmĩirwo nĩ ng'aragu kaunti-inĩ itiganĩte, kaunti ta ya Tharaka Nithi kũrĩ kũmwe gwa kũrĩa kũgũmĩirwo nĩ ng'aragu, na maya nĩ mamwe ma marĩa president atanyĩtwo gũkorwo akĩmũrĩka mũthenya wa ũmũthĩ thĩinĩ wa ndũmĩrĩri yake, mũthenya wa ũmũthĩ thĩinĩ wa ndũmĩrĩri yake ya o mwaka kũrĩ bũrũri. Ambunge nĩ marĩkĩtie gwĩgathanaga kũrĩa ciikaro-inĩ, na no gũgĩtereta maratereta ũrĩa ũrona hau mbica-inĩ yaku, magĩthiĩ na mbere na gũtereta nĩ o magĩetereire president hamwe na ũtongoria wa mbunge nĩgetha president akinya arĩrie bũrũri gwĩtĩkĩra mbunge na agĩtarĩrie mĩtaratara kana heane ndũmĩrĩri yake ya ũrĩa bũrũri ũgũthiĩ na mbere. President no atanyĩtwo kũhutia ũhoro wĩgiĩ kũrũgamĩrĩra wonjoria wa bũrũri, nĩ amu nĩ wonjoria ũkoretwo ũgũmĩirwo mũno nĩ mũrimũ wa COVID-19. Ũgakora biacara nyingĩ mũno nĩ ciathũire na andũ aingĩ makĩbutwo mawĩra, na ũguo president nĩ atanyĩtwo gũkorwo akĩheana ndũmĩrĩri ĩgiĩ kũrũmũkia wonjoria, hihi nĩ makinya marĩkũ na marĩkũ thirikari yake ĩratacukia nĩgetha gũtigĩrĩra atĩ Akenya arĩa mawĩra mao magũthirwo igũta na mũrimũ wa COVID-19 nĩ macokereria na mandĩka kinyagia andũ arĩa makoretwo mabutĩtwo mawĩra kwa ihinda rĩu rĩa kuma mweri wa gatatũ nginyagia rĩu mweri-inĩ wa 11 tũgĩthiĩ Dithemba, nĩ hakuhĩ mĩaka ĩrĩ rĩu ya mũrimũ wa COVID-19. Thabarĩ bũrũri ũtarĩ wagera rĩngĩ, thabarĩ ĩtarĩ yagera rĩngĩ, no ũtongoria wa kũhetũkĩra president Uhuru Kenyatta, wĩrutĩri wa Akenya gũtĩĩa mawatho ma kũhũrana na mũrimũ wa COVID-19 nĩ mateithĩtie bũrũri gũkorwo ũregeretie mamwe ma mawatho. Ririkana mwaka mũthiru mweri-inĩ wa 11 president akĩheana ndũmĩrĩri yake tarĩki 12 mweri wa 11 mwaka mũthiru. President akĩheana ndũmĩrĩri ĩyo bũrũri warĩ rungu rwa mawatho ma curfew, warĩ na ũhoro wĩgiĩ kũhingwo kaunti-inĩ nĩ ũndũ wa gũteithĩrĩria kũhũrana na ũtambia wa mũrimũ wa COVID-19. Na kwa ihinda rĩrĩ president akĩheana ndũmĩrĩri ĩno nĩ thikũ iratĩmĩra o mweri mũgima rĩu na kĩndũ, mweri mũgima na thikũ ta 10 kuma rĩrĩa president eheririe mawatho ma curfew na andũ magĩcokereria mĩhang'o-inĩ yao, o makĩririkanagio na makĩririkanaga atĩ kwĩna mũrimũ wa COVID-19, na nĩ ũndũ wa bata mũno na kuonania ikinya rĩrĩa bũrũri ũtacũkĩtie kuma mweri wa 11 mwaka mũhetũku atĩ hĩndĩ ĩyo kũrĩ matũũra ma bũrũri matathiĩkaga mahingĩtwo nĩ ũndũ wa kũhũrana na mũrimũ, na ũmũthĩ bũrũri wothe nĩ mũhingũre. Ũguo nĩ kuonania thabarĩ ya bũrũri ũkoretwo nayo bara-inĩ ĩno ya COVID-19, na ũguo nĩ ũndũ wa kwĩrahĩra ona gũtuĩka Mũgĩkũyũ augaga mũkuha ũrĩ o-ini, ũguo Akenya matigĩbatiĩ gũkũngũĩra meriganĩrwo, no nĩ ũndũ wa bata mũno kuona atĩ o ũrĩa tũrathiĩ na mbere ũrakora thikũ ici bũrũri ũrandĩkithia arwaru rĩngĩ 20, 30. Ikuga atĩ nĩguo tũbatiĩ kwandĩkithia ta bũrũri, no ũkĩringithania na hau kabere twandĩkithagia arwaru nginyagia 1,000 na ũmũthĩ wandĩkithĩria gũtirĩ ũhoro riboti ciĩgiĩ ikuũ cia andũ kumana na mũrimũ wa COVID-19. Nĩ ũndũ wa kwĩrahĩra twĩ bũrũri, na hihi president nĩ agũgĩthaitha Akenya makorwo magĩthiĩ na mbere kwĩgitĩra, kwĩmenyerera makĩria kumana na mũrimũ ũyũ ũrerĩkana wa mũrimũ wa COVID-19 ũretwo Omicron. President nĩ atanyĩtwo kwĩra Akenya mathiĩ na mbere na gũikara mekemba, mathiĩ na mbere na gũikara meritho, nĩgetha gũtigĩrĩra o mũndũ egitĩra na rĩu mbica-inĩ ciaku ũguo ũrona nĩ acio nĩ maabitha a ũrangĩri wa mbunge marathiĩ na mbere kwĩharĩria gweterera president akiuma kũrĩa cikaro-inĩ cia spika wabici-inĩ cia spika nĩgetha oke ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe kinyagia cikaro-inĩ cia mbunge. Ambunge nona nĩ methagathagĩte rĩu kwa ihinda rĩrĩ icio kana ĩno nĩ njĩra ya gũthiĩ wabici-inĩ ya spika o kũu thĩinĩ wa cikaro cia mbunge, na rĩu kuma hau egũcoka president hamwe na maspika erĩ hamwe na atongoria a mbunge megũkorwo magĩũka ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe moke maingĩrĩte gũkũ thĩinĩ wa mbunge nĩgetha president agĩe na mweke ũcio wa kũrekereria ndũmĩrĩri yake kũrĩ bũrũri. Kũrĩa gĩcikaro-inĩ cia mbunge na nĩ kuona ambunge no marathiĩ na mbere na gũtereka nĩamu gĩikaro gĩkĩ kĩa mbunge rĩu kwa ihinda rĩrĩ nĩ kĩingĩthĩte ndagĩka o ithaa rĩmwe nĩamu tũbatiĩ kwanjĩrĩria thaa inyanya na nuthu na thaa ici nĩ thaa kenda na ndagĩka mĩrongo ĩrĩ na kenda, ũguo nĩ kĩingĩthĩte ithaa rĩmwe no rĩu ũmũthĩ nĩ mũthenya wa mũtongoria wa bũrũri President Uhuru Kenyatta atarĩrie maũndũ kana atarĩrie bũrũri maũndũ marĩa ekwenda kũringana na ndũmĩrĩri yake marĩa ekĩte na marĩa egwĩka. Ona gũkũ cikaro-inĩ cia mbunge nĩ kuona ambunge maikarĩte mataraganĩte matikoranĩrĩirie nĩ ũndũ wa gũtĩĩa mawatho ma mũrimũ wa COVID-19 na o mũmbunge ena haki yake nĩ athundũrĩte maraihanĩrĩirie na nĩ kĩonereria Kenya kĩrĩa ya mbunge ĩno atĩ mũrimũ wa COVID-19 ũrokwo na nĩ igũrũ rĩa o mũndũ kĩũmbe egĩkĩre hau nĩ tũrona mũrangĩri wa president akĩhiũka ũguo ũguo nĩ kuga kwa ihinda o rĩothe ndagĩka o yothe kuma rĩu twahota kuona president akĩingĩra gũkũ cikaro-inĩ cia mbunge nĩgetha arĩrie ambunge ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe na o hau akorwo akĩarĩria bũrũri. No tũrona ambunge gũkũ ndirikana nĩ cikaro-inĩ cia mbunge thĩinĩ kũrĩa ambunge marĩkĩtie gwĩthagathaga gweterera president othe ambunge mũng'ethanĩro na athiri arĩa marĩ thirikari-inĩ nĩ meharĩirie nĩgetha gweterera president akĩrĩkia kũingĩra ũguo amũkĩrwo nĩ maspika erĩ na acoke arĩrie bũrũri kũhĩtũkĩra mbunge kũhĩtũkĩra ambunge arĩa tũthuraga endita arĩa tũthuraga nĩgetha mathiĩ matũrũgamĩrĩra. Ũguo nĩ ũndũ ambunge onao ta Akenya mathiĩte na mbere na gweterera na gũthondekwo nĩgetha kũigua ndũmĩrĩri ĩyo ya president. Nĩ ndũmĩrĩri ĩkũhutia kinyagia maũndũ megiĩ ũthii wa na mbere na bũrũri na nĩ ũrona ambunge amwe makĩũrania nĩkĩ kĩrathiĩ na mbere no ũhoro wa ma nĩ atĩ president nĩ gũkorwo agĩkinyia gũkũ cikaro-inĩ ici cia mbunge nĩgetha arĩrie bũrũri na ũrĩa gũtarĩirie president egũkorwo agĩikara gatagatĩ nĩ kuona metha ĩrĩa president aragĩria ĩrĩa ahũthagĩra kwaria nĩ ũrona ĩ gatagatĩ ga cikaro icio cia mbunge mũno ũyũ wa kuguo mũtho mbica icio ndĩrona hau nĩ cia spika nĩ cia kũrĩa mbunge-inĩ ya Senate nacio cia mwena wa kũrĩa ndĩrona nĩ cia spika wa mbunge ya kĩbũrũri. No gũkũ cikaro ici nĩ cikaro cia mbunge ya kĩbũrũri nĩamu nĩ tũgũkoragwo na ũingĩ wa ambunge 349 na maseneta 67 nao makoragwo cikaro-inĩ ciao kĩrĩa gũkũ cikaro-inĩ cia mbunge no ti gũkũ thĩinĩ na kuma hau atongoria aya marĩ hamwe othe nĩgetha president amarĩrie marĩ hamwe. Nĩ kũririkana atĩ President Bũrũri Kenyatta nĩ ũkoretwo arĩ president wa mbere gũkinyanĩria gatiba njerũ bũrũri-inĩ, gatiba ĩrĩa tugaga nĩ njerũ no rĩu ĩrĩ na mĩaka 11, gatiba ĩrĩa yathĩrĩirie atĩ tume thĩinĩ wa mũtaratara wa bunge ĩrĩa yarĩ ĩmwe tu, na rĩu tũgĩe na bunge igĩrĩ, bunge ya Senate na bunge ya kĩbũrũri, na bunge ici ciothe ciĩ hamwe, na gatiba ĩyo no yaigire president ndarĩkoragwo arĩ mũmbunge ta na hau kabere, na ũrĩa kwarĩ hau kabere tene kwarĩ na president akoragwo e mũmbunge, no kwa ihinda rĩrĩ president kana mũnini wake matikoragwo marĩ ambunge. Ũguo mbica icio rĩu ũrona hau nĩ cia arangĩri a bunge kana maabitha arĩa marutaga wĩra mbunge-inĩ ya kĩbũrũri na mbunge-inĩ ya Senate. Itu para imo kwa imo kina shikara ini shabu ya kidije.
With your abundant favor and blessings, as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic, we seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Your Excellency, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya, and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces. The Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin B. Muturi, EGH MP, Honorable Members of Parliament, Article 1321B of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address a special sitting of the Parliament of Kenya once every year and any other time. Further, Article 1321C requires the President to inter alia report in an address to the nation all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values set out in Article 10 of the Constitution. In addition, Article 2407 of the Constitution requires the President in his capacity as the Chairperson of the National Security Council, NCC, to report to Parliament annually on the state of the security of Kenya. In this regard, pursuant to Article 1321B and C1 and 2 of the Constitution and Senate Standing Order number 2221 and 2, upon a request by the Presidency via a letter reference number OP/CAB 2612A, dated 19th November 2021, I gave notice of today's special sitting to the Honorable Senators via Gazette Notice number 12989, which was published on Friday, 26 November 2021. Accordingly, Honorable Members, this special sitting is properly convened. I thank you.
Your Excellency, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, the Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Right Honorable Senator Kenneth Lusaka, EGH, Honourable Members of Parliament, Article 132, Clause 1 of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address a special sitting of Parliament once every year and at any other time. Further, Article 132, Clause 1, Paragraph C requires the President to once every year report in an address to the nation on measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of our national values. Additionally, Article 132, Clause 1, Paragraph C, Roman 3, provides that the President shall submit a report for debate in the National Assembly on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic. In this regard, honourable members, by way of a message to the House dated 19th of November 2021, His Excellency the President conveyed his desire to address a joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament today, 30th of November 2021. Consequently, pursuant to provisions of Article 132, Clause 1, Paragraph B and C, Romans 1 and 2 of the Constitution and the provisions of Standing Order number 22 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, by Gazette Notice number 12823, which was published in the Kenya Gazette on 23rd of November 2021, I gave notice of this special sitting to the members of the National Assembly. Accordingly, honourable members, this special sitting is properly convened. Your Excellency, allow me, in the usual parliamentary practice, to recognize part of the distinguished guests who are with us today. Seated in the Speaker's role, I wish to recognize His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, EGH, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Lady Justice Martha Koome, CBS, the former Prime Minister, and the African Union's High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, PGH, former Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, EGH, and the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, EGH, and the Chairperson of the Council of Governors, who is also the Governor of Embu County, the Honorable Martin Wambora, EGH. Please join me, honourable members, in welcoming them to the National Assembly. Your Excellency, allow me also to welcome other members of the judiciary present today, including the Honorable Lady Justice Njoki Ndung'u, Judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Daniel Musinga, President of the Court of Appeal, Lady Justice Lydia Achonde of the High Court, and Justice Oscar Angote, and Lady Justice Maureen Onyango. Your Excellency, may I also accord special recognition to all Cabinet Secretaries present, the Head of the Public Service, Dr. Joseph Kinyua, Principal Secretaries, the Governor of Nairobi City County, Honorable Anne Kananu, members of the Diplomatic Corps present, and the Chairperson of the County Assemblies Forum, who is also the Speaker of the County Assembly of Nyandarua, the Honorable Wahome Degwa. You are all welcome to Parliament. Honourable members, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces to address this special sitting of Parliament. Welcome, Your Excellency.
very much. The Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Members of Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, indeed it is my distinct honor and high privilege to once again return to the chambers of Parliament to deliver my 8th State of the Nation address since my assumption of office as the 4th President of the Republic of Kenya on Tuesday, 9th of April, 2013. As always, it is a great pleasure to return to this august house where I have had the opportunity to serve on both sides of the parliamentary divide, indeed with many of you who are present here today. I first served as a nominated member of Parliament, introduced into this chamber by the Honorable Raila Odinga and the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, and later as a cabinet minister. And after an unsuccessful presidential bid in 2002, I found myself on the opposition benches as the leader of the official opposition and Member of Parliament for Gatundu South. 5 years later, I was called to serve as Deputy Prime Minister in the Grand Coalition Government under His Excellency, the former President, Honorable Mwai Kibaki, and the Honorable Prime Minister, Right Honorable Raila Odinga. In that position, in that administration, I held 2 positions, the Minister of Trade and later the Minister of Finance. This journey of mixed fortunes taught me that you could serve your country in any capacity, because service is not a position, it is action. It also taught me to have empathy for both sides of the parliamentary divide and indeed all shades of political opinion. Of all the lessons, the enduring one is that Kenya is always greater than any one of us. Indeed, in times of great political turmoil, men and women must be spurred by the love of their country to bridge partisan divides and to come together to put Kenya first. It is not always easy, but honorable members, it is necessary. Then as now, we are called upon to do all that is necessary to heal Kenya, to build bridges, and to focus on the 99% of shared visions of a better Kenya as a priority to the 1% of differing ideologies and positions. Personal ambitions were placed aside for the good of Kenya and the enduring benefit of generations of Kenyans yet unborn. And that selfless service, that sacrifice, led to the people of Kenya ultimately working together, bestowing upon me the high honor and extreme privilege of serving them as president in 2002. For the trust and faith that the great people of Kenya placed on me, I am and will forever be most grateful and eternally humbled. Mr. Speaker, today I return to Parliament as President, and I am here to fulfill a constitutional imperative introduced into our political tradition and practice by the 2010 Constitution. In fact, I was indeed privileged to be the second president to be discharged this constitutional mandate when I first made my first State of the Nation address on the 27th of March 2014. The Constitution at Article 132 mandates the President to report to a special joint sitting of both Houses of Parliament on measures taken and progress made in the realization of our national values as defined by Article 10 of our Constitution. I am also constitutionally obliged to report on the status of our fulfillment of the international obligations of the Republic and the state of our national security and the general state of the nation. In line with this constitutional instruction, my address today will lay emphasis on three elements that I consider important to our country. The first is the state of our economic development, which is about our national well-being. The second is the state of our social structure, which looks at the restoration and propagation of the dignity of our people. And the third is the state of our nationhood, which speaks to the soul of our nation, including the state of our democracy. Before I report on these thematic areas, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, and honorable members, to give a brief account on the state of our national response to emerging disruptions. Specifically, I want to now put on record how the power of choice on the part of our administration, as supported by Parliament and indeed the county governments, turned the COVID-19 pandemic from a national crisis to what I believe is an intergenerational opportunity. Mr. Speakers, when the pandemic hit our country in March of 2020, we were quick to warn the nation that a crisis is twofold. It is partly a danger and partly an opportunity at the same stroke. I highlighted the inescapable fact that depending on what you focus on in a crisis, you can either emerge triumphant or indecisive out of fear and despair. In other words, a crisis is indeed all about choices. Those who choose danger and fear do not survive. Those who see the crisis through the lens of opportunity develop resilience and are able to build back better. And I say this because, for instance, a Kenyan company known as Revital, operating in Kilifi County in the Coast region, became Africa's largest producer and exporter of vaccine syringes during the COVID period. In 2020 alone, Revital exported 70 million COVID syringes to over 20 countries globally. In fact, Revital currently has the capacity to produce 300 million COVID vaccine syringes every year. The global shortage for COVID vaccine syringes stands at 2 billion, and this itself is taking advantage of opportunity. This means that Revital is able to produce 1 out of every 10 COVID vaccine syringes globally. The company saw opportunity in the crisis of COVID, adopted accordingly, and innovated its business processes to optimize on the new opportunity. Another company in the same league is Hela, a global apparel making company with a foothold here in Kenya. In the first months of the pandemic, this company changed its strategy from producing clothes to producing PPEs and face masks. With the WHO requirements of 80 million face masks per month at the height of COVID duress, Hela produced 5 million masks a month between April and May 2020. This means that through innovation, Hela manufactured 1 out of 16 masks required globally every month, contributing immensely to the slowing down of the COVID pandemic. This again was a case of seeing opportunity in a disaster and adopting to the changes. However, choices are nothing without leadership, and I say this because when COVID-19 hit our country, my administration found itself confronted with a dilemma of two rights. Opinion was sharply divided on whether to lock down the country or to leave it open. On one side of the divide, they presented an economic argument. They warned us that to leave the country open, they advised us to leave the country open and save the economy and they argued that COVID was a health crisis that should not trump economic imperatives. The other side of the divide made a compelling health argument against the economic argument. Led by a brain trust of medical scientists and researchers, they argued that the country had no option but to lock down. Their models pointed to a soaring crisis if drastic choices were not made. According to these experts, a series of irreducible minimums had to be met before considering softer health protocols. Indeed, after much reflection, we opted for the public health argument over the economic argument. Our rationale was that you can always revive an ailing economy, but we cannot bring to life those who die from the pandemic. And with this logic informing our choices, we set out to build the irreducible minimums recommended by the experts to forestall a COVID disaster. Although the health argument won, we did not dismiss the economic argument in toto. We made fiscal choices to cushion the economy through a number of economic stimuli. And today I'm happy to go on record in this august House as having succeeded in the choices that our administration made. Because of our fiscal stimuli, today I can report that the impact of COVID on our economy was 14 times lesser than that on the global economy. As part of the first stimulus package that we announced interventions that warranted the national exchequer to forego taxes amounting to Kenya shillings 176 billion. These tax measures included the immediate reduction of VAT from 16% to 14%, 100% tax relief for all persons earning up to Kenya shillings 24,000, reduction of pay as you earn from 30% to 25%, reduction of corporation tax from 30% to 25%. We also caused the lowering of the central bank rate, the CBR, to 7.25% from 8.25%, so as to prompt commercial banks to lower interest rates applicable to their borrowers and thereby avail much needed affordable credit to MSMEs across our country. We lowered the cash reserve ratio, the CRR, to 4.25% from 5.25%, so as to provide additional liquidity of approximately 35 billion to commercial banks in order to directly support borrowers that were distressed as a result of the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Central Bank of Kenya also provided flexibility to banks with regard to the requirements applicable to loan classification and provision of loans that were performing as of the 2nd of March 2020. We further engaged banks and all financial institutions to support all enterprises and families that sought to restructure their commercial banking through debt moratoriums and review of tenure of these facilities. There was a temporary suspension of the listing of the credit reference bureaus of any person, micro, small and medium enterprise and corporate entities whose loans had fallen overdue or was in arrears. The Kenya Revenue Authority was directed to expedite the payments of all verified VAT refund claims amounting to some 10 billion shillings, or in alternative, allow for the offsetting of withholding VAT in order to improve cash flows for businesses. The 6 billion shillings from the Universal Health Coverage Kitty was immediately appropriated strictly towards supporting counties in the recruitment of additional health workers to support in the management of the spread of COVID-19. Subsequently, we rolled out the second stimulus package with the support of this House, whose tenure tenant was an 8-point economic stimulus program amounting to some Kenya shillings 56.6 billion. The first element of the 8-point program focused on Buy Kenya, Build Kenya policy. On local infrastructure development, we allocated 10 billion towards the National Hygiene Program dubbed Kazi Mtaani Initiative. The program was conceptualized as an extended public works project aimed at utilizing labor-intensive approaches to create sustainable public good in the urban development sector. The program has so far secured gainful engagement to over 750 youths engaged in the improvements to the environment and hygiene and in the rehabilitation of access roads, footbridges, and other public infrastructure through local labor. The second was on education, with an additional 6.5 billion to the Ministry of Education to hire an additional 10,000 teachers and 1,000 ICT interns to support digital learning and the acquisition of 250,000 locally fabricated desks. The third element of the program targeted small and medium enterprises through an injection of Kenya shillings 5 billion as seed capital for the SME Credit Guarantee Scheme. The intention here was to provide affordable credit to small and micro enterprises. The fourth focused on universal health coverage through acquisition of locally made beds. The fifth element of the stimulus program focused on agriculture. We prioritized 3 billion for the supply of farm inputs through e-vouchers, targeting 200,000 small-scale farmers, and a further 1.5 billion to assist flower and horticultural producers to access international markets in a period where we had a shortage of flights into and out of our country. Tourism was the sixth area of target for the stimulus program. To jumpstart this important sector and to protect its players from heavy financial losses, we provided soft loans to hotels and related establishments through the Tourism Finance Corporation, and a total of 2 billion was applied towards renovation of facilities and the restructuring of business operations by actors in this industry. To mitigate the impact of deforestation and climate change, and to enhance the provision of water facilities, we rehabilitated wells, water pans, and underground tanks in arid and semi-arid areas, and we applied Kenya shillings 2.5 billion for flood control measures and our Greening Kenya campaign. The eighth and final element was a stimulus program was manufacturing. As a strategy, we enforced the policy on Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, and we set aside an initial investment of 600 million shillings to purchase locally manufactured vehicles. This was expected to sustain the operations of local motor vehicle manufacturers and their attendant employment of workers. Mr. Speakers, the foregoing interventions help to reinforce the resilience of our economy while cushioning millions of households against the effect of the economy. And in that regard, while most economies in the world shrunk, Kenya's economy grew at 0.3 during the 2020 period, despite the COVID challenge. Although this positive growth was minimal, the second quarter of 2021 registered the most impressive growth ever recorded in our nation's real GDP. During the second quarter of 2021, real GDP recorded a phenomenal 10.1% growth, and this is the highest growth ever recorded in one quarter in Kenya's history. It is also the first time Kenya has hit a double-digit growth number. The last time Kenya's economy got close to this kind of performance was in 2010, during the Grand Coalition government, when the economy hit an 8.4% growth rate. And it was this impressive trajectory that led me to announce the 13-point interventions unveiled on Mashujaa Day this year to cushion the economy with a further Kenya shillings 25 billion as our third stimulus package, pushing the aggregate of our stimuli over the COVID period to Kenya shillings 257 billion. The third stimulus package focused on the key productive and service sectors that covered agriculture, health, education, drought response, policy infrastructure, financial inclusion, energy, and environmental conservation. These 13 interventions were as follows. The first intervention was in the tea subsector, where I am pleased to confirm that we have supported the tea subsector with Kenya shillings 1 billion in support of fertilizer subsidy for our tea farmers, securing our nation's top agricultural export, and happy also to report that our tea farmers are today receiving the highest pay that they have received in many, many years. The second intervention was in the sugar subsector, and I note with satisfaction that smoke is once again billowing in our public sugar mills, following the allocation of Kenya shillings 1.5 billion in aid of the sugar sector that is being applied towards factory maintenance and the payment of farmers' arrears. The third intervention was in the coffee subsector, and I confirm that 1 billion shillings was released in support of the ongoing reforms in the subsector that is being applied towards completion of the ongoing targeted interventions in the coffee subsector. The fourth intervention was in the livestock subsector. The Kenya shillings 1.5 billion National Livestock Offtake Program is on course in support of communities adversely affected by the ongoing drought in ASAL counties. The fifth intervention was also in the livestock subsector, and I confirm that the interventions geared towards the reduction of the cost of animal feeds are well on course. The sixth intervention was in education. Noting the success of my administration's policy on 100% transition from primary to secondary school, I did direct that the National Treasury should allocate a further 8 billion shillings to the Ministry of Education for the CBC Infrastructure Expansion Program, targeting the construction of 10,000 classrooms. And I am most pleased to confirm to the nation that all the county's works and constructions of the classrooms should commence by early December 2021. The seventh intervention was in health, to enhance access to medical coverage across our country, and as part of our universal health coverage program, I did direct the Ministry of Health to establish an additional 50 new level 3 hospitals to be situated in both non-covered areas as well as densely populated areas across our nation. And I also directed the National Treasury to allocate the sum of 3.2 billion for the immediate construction of these new medical facilities. The eighth intervention was the National Sanitation Program. We started this program, as I said earlier, to harness the energy of our young people and to give them a buffer against COVID-related unemployment. Noting the success of Kazi Mtaani program and its effect in enhancing opportunities for the youth across our country, we did require the National Treasury to allocate a further 10 billion shillings for the third phase of the Kazi Mtaani program to cover youths and to be rolled out in all our counties across the country. The ninth intervention was on energy and petroleum. Being fully aware of the positive strides being made in our economic recovery and cognizant that the gains stand the risk of being eroded by high energy prices, I am pleased to confirm that we are on course to institutionalize the sought reforms. The 10th intervention was on access to credit. Critically, I asked the National Treasury and the Central Bank of Kenya to consider suspending the blacklisting of creditors with loans below Kenya shillings 5 million at the Credit Reference Bureau, in a move that targeted retaining the bounce-back potential of the foundation of our economy. As the 11th intent, I also asked the National Treasury and the Central Bank of Kenya to consider revising the maximum amount an individual or enterprise can withdraw or deposit from a bank that previously stood at 1 million shillings, which was not supportive of our current business environment. I'm glad to report to Parliament that as of the 8th November 2021, the Central Bank of Kenya issued a notice suspending the listing of negative credit information for borrowers with loans below Kenya shillings 5 million and that fell into arrears from October 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2022. This will give the MSMEs 12 months to reorganize themselves and to adapt to the new economic normal. I am also happy to report that the Central Bank of Kenya is at an advanced stage of revising the 1 million threshold for cash deposits and withdrawals in the banks. This will facilitate easy transactions for MSMEs and help the economy respond to COVID shocks. The 12th intervention was the digital financial services subsector. In recognition of the importance of the digital financial services, especially in the small-scale traders and households at large, I did direct the National Treasury to engage all digital payment providers with the aim of deepening and expanding the use of payment channels. The third intervention was two-pronged. One in the area of vaccination against COVID-19 as part of our national response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We rolled out a national vaccine deployment plan aiming at vaccinating 10 million adults by June of 2022 and approximately 16 million by June of 2023. With regard to the COVID-19 vaccine production, we have set out to implement the lessons of self-reliance, which was one of the key learning points of the pandemic. As the first step towards this goal, we established the Kenya Biovacs Limited, a venture that would locally produce anti-COVID-19 vaccines. I therefore directed the Ministry of Health to operationalize the company to form and fill an eventual manufacture of our locally produced vaccines by Easter of next year. Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, at this point I would like to take special note of the resilience of our revenue collection systems under the Kenya Revenue Authority. For the first time, KRA has exceeded its revenue collection target despite the COVID stress over the economy. The KRA projected a Kenya shillings 1.5 trillion collection in tax during 2020. They collected Kenya shillings 1.67 trillion, which was in excess of their projected intention. But on this note, I must report on the sterling performance of KRA, not only under the COVID duress, but in the last 8 years of our administration. In the last eight years, KRA has collected Kenya shillings 10.8 trillion cumulatively in revenues. This means that in just 8 years, KRA has collected the equivalent of Kenya's total GDP. It also means that on average, KRA collected 1.3 trillion shillings every year. Honorable speakers, honorable members, to accelerate the turnaround of our micro, small, and medium enterprises under the ease of doing business government agenda, my administration has implemented remarkable reforms over the years. These measures have not only improved the country's business climate, they have also mitigated the challenge and bottlenecks impacting business. The key reform that we have implemented include the full automation of business registration services, re-engineering of the application for power, water and sewer connection, and the automation of the land registration process. In addition, we have adopted e-payment, e-filing, and e-service at the commercial divisions of the High Court and fully operationalized the Small Claims Court, which has seen disputes involving SMEs, mostly our young people, being resolved within a record 60 days and thus freeing capital locked up in legal disputes. Equally important is the full automation and streamlining of the payment of taxes in order to ease the burden of compliance, and the redesigning of the import and export processes, which has reduced the cost while improving efficiency of our ports, among other notable reforms. Mr. Speakers, as an affirmation that our reforms on ease of doing business are bearing dividend, just last week we scored a global first with the President of the European Investment Bank, who was in the country to witness the official opening of the European Investment Bank's first regional hub outside the European Union. The Nairobi Regional Hub will cover 11 countries in Eastern and Central Africa and will act as a pilot for the setting up of other EIB regional hubs into the future. This speaks to our administration's agenda to position Nairobi as an international financial center. But an even better example of COVID resilience is the strengthened relationship between the national and county governments. Although the National and County Government Summit has operated smoothly since it became effective, I must admit that the COVID pandemic revitalized its energy. Whenever we gathered as a summit during this crisis, the consciousness of the entire nation was called to order. We put asunder the political dynamics of the moment, and our only business became Kenya. We demonstrated in word and in deed that devolution is a powerful driver of social economic development, and it creates synergies and acceleration points that in turn generates tangible benefits for all Kenyans. We understood very well that to overcome the crisis, we had to act as one. Rather than allowing the nation to succumb to COVID fatigue, we came together and galvanized our people towards strength, resilience, and building back better. Where others stumbled and fell, we rose and soared. During the COVID stress period, the national and county governments demonstrated their true leadership. Nothing demonstrates this better than the strengthening of our healthcare systems under the dark cover of the COVID-19 pressure. When the COVID pandemic hit our country, we had in ICU bed capacity only 180 beds countrywide. This translated to an average of 2 ICU beds in each county. But in the face of COVID, this reality was a disaster. But given the collaboration between the 2 levels of government, we increased ICU bed capacity by 502% during the COVID period. Equally important to note, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we had the capacity only to generate 3 million liters of oxygen per day in March of 2020. Today, I am proud to say that we have improved our oxygen generation capacity in public health facilities by 10 times to 32 million liters per day as of October 2021. Kenya can be proud of one more innovation. In March of 2020, we had only 1 laboratory that could test notifiable diseases of international concern. In fact, we had to send our tests for notifiable diseases to South Africa. When the COVID pandemic hit our country, we had to wait 5 days for the South African laboratories to send us results. Today, we have moved from 1 testing laboratory to 95 well-equipped laboratories. What is it then that we have learned from the COVID disaster? We have learned that our solutions must be homegrown. That is why we have commissioned a vaccine development project for disruptive viruses like COVID-19 to serve not only Kenya, but the region at large. Mr. Speakers, another national reminder of the opportunities we seized during COVID-19 was the site of the Likoni Channel crossing in Mombasa. Previous scenes of Mombasa residents congested along the Likoni ferry are now a thing of the past. The iconic Likoni floating bridge, built in a record time of 6 months and opened to the public in December 2020, sees over 150,000 residents cross the channel on a daily basis in an orderly, safe, and secure manner. This has not only allowed for the efficient management of time and mobility across the channel, but significantly moderated the incidences of COVID-19 transmission and contributed to our overall disease mitigation strategy in the coastal region. Kenya has taken pride of place through this initiative, a first of its kind in the region, linking Liwatoni on Mombasa Island with Ras Bofu on the Likoni mainland, and we intend to adopt such innovative approaches and learning to deliver on similar challenges in our various sectors. In sum, Mr. Speakers, COVID was both a danger and an opportunity. But because we focused on the opportunity side of the crisis, now Kenya has developed the necessary infrastructure for rolling out the universal health coverage outreach. But of equal importance, our innovations in the area of health have propelled us to a place where Kenya can become a destination for health tourism for the region and beyond. Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot end this COVID part of my address to Parliament without tribute to Kenya for the commendable civil responsibility to fight against COVID-19. While my administration provided leadership and action, our people supported us with self-sacrifice and civic duty. As you will recall, early in the pandemic, I did warn our people that government cannot the morality of citizens. I warned that in a war against an invisible enemy like COVID, our former way of life would have to be adapted to a new normal where every Kenyan was his or her neighbor's keeper. In this new normal, citizens do not fight for liberty, they scramble to survive. When I made this call for civic responsibility in the face of COVID, I also emphasized responsibility is a burden, is a civic duty. I salute to our fellow citizens for being responsible members of our communities. And indeed, as our forefathers stressed time and time again, our greatest strength will always be our unity. Today, I am happy to report that despite the challenges and immense on our Kenyans did rise to the task and acted responsibly. Where others were reluctant, Kenyans gladly sacrificed for the good of the whole. For that reason, we were able to bend the curve and prevent the worst case scenarios. And due to this, and after careful consideration, during the Mashujaa Day celebrations, I lifted the curfew and restriction of movement countrywide. Once again, as we have always done, we have shown that Kenyans are a people who put country above self, neighbor above individual, and we are a people who firmly believe in exercising our rights and freedoms in a responsible and purposeful manner. While a few battles have been won, the war against COVID is not yet won. We cannot rest on now more than ever. We are faced with yet another variant of this coronavirus, the Omicron variant that is said to carry a higher risk of infection. This variant may explain infection rate spikes that we are witnessing across the globe. I did pledge to the nation in June of this year that by Christmas we would have over 10 million adults vaccinated. As of today, we have achieved a target of 7.1 million Kenyans, up from 5 million as announced on Mashujaa Day in October 2020. Mr. Speakers, to fortify our national law against COVID-19, and in honor of all those who have lost to the disease, I do urge today all Kenyan adults to visit their nearest medical facility to receive their COVID-19 vaccinations. The COVID-19 vaccines are in stock across our country and in all our counties, and already with a daily average rate of over 100,000 vaccinations, we have a much smaller target to meet within the next 25 days. I therefore once again call on all Kenyans to rally under the call of 25 days to Christmas to secure their vaccinations, to meet and surpass the target that we set ourselves. And I invite the media in all its various forms to use their platforms to perform the social good and promote the vaccination campaign. This new variant's profile, as for now, remains unknown. It is therefore better to err on the side of caution. By receiving our vaccinations, we will have played our part in securing not only our own lives, but also in protecting the lives of those around us. Let us be responsible in this endeavor. That shot in the arm is the most powerful weapon against the disease that has ravaged the world. That shot in the arm of every adult Kenyan will also be a shot in the arm for our economy and our social institutions. It ensures that we can conquer, that if we can conquer and put this disease aside and fully return to normal, we can continue on our growth trajectory. No Kenyan should hold back from this perfectly safe and free way to protect yourself, your family, your neighbors, your colleagues, and the nation at large. Let us tear down this disease, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Speakers, throughout our history, the collective task of nation building has been guided by the shared aspirations of eradicating the indignities of ignorance, disease, and hunger. This was the vision that fueled our struggle for independence. Post-independence, every Kenyan generation and every administration since has sought to do all within its means to finally slay the three-headed monster that has plagued us for over many centuries. To steer the nation towards a path for the realization of these aspirations, the people of Kenya entrusted the responsibility of actualization of that vision on the elected and appointed state officials and officers to whom the powers of our nation have been delegated to. These elected appointed state officers include 47 governors, 350 members of the National Assembly, 67 members of the Senate, and 2,240 members of the county assemblies. We are many, but we must act as one. One government of Kenya that acts in unison to give the people of Kenya a better present and a brighter future. Our collective contributions to move the nation closer to our destiny of a more fair, just, and equitable Kenya for all builds on the intentions of previous administrations as supported by the Houses of Parliament and the organs of the state. I say this fully aware of the enormous work, that this enormous work cannot be concluded in one generation. Ours is a relay race, where we receive the baton and run the race and pass it on to our successors unbroken. Mr. Speaker, sirs, the most notable intergenerational quest is what inspired the Big Four agenda as a strategic guide for my second term in office. To do so, my administration and our colleagues in both tiers of government had to make commitments towards a transformation in 4 key areas of intent. The first one is liberating our people from the poverty of dignity caused by inadequate services. The second is transitioning our people, especially our youth, from being recipients of handouts to producers of goods and services, as well as owners of capital. The third is building a holistic base of human capital that is food secure and health assured. And the fourth is the restoration of the dignity and the pride inherent of one owning a decent home. Mr. Speakers, I will now give an account of what my administration has done not only in the last year, but what we have attempted to do in the last 8 years as well. And I will use the last 8 years to give this august Houses a scale against which everything that my administration has achieved is to be measured. I will use history as a yardstick that we can borrow from to appreciate the achievements of our 2 tiers of government and our objective of delivery. The first area of thrust that I will report on is the state